Hey, this is Jesse with Create This. This is a new channel. This is my AngularJS channel. Today we're going to deal with this plunker that I've made that describes a weird quirk that I recently came across while developing some controller code. So this uses underscore. It uses the extend method. It showcases a quirk of what can happen if you try to use extend on an array in AngularJS. So let's take a look at the HTML file real quick. The most important thing here, I do all of my includes up here, but the most important thing here is I've got an input and the ng model is pointing to foo.bar. Back in the controller, foo is initialized on scope as an array. So when you say foo.bar, AngularJS is going to rewrite foo as an object instead of an array. So that can be kind of confusing. The other part that I want to talk about is the difference between console.log and debugger. So let's run this through first with console.log and we'll see what happens. Bear with me here. This is kind of interesting. So we're going to click. Okay. So kind of what we expect to happen doesn't happen because we kind of expect extend to not work with an array. I mean, that's usually what happens. Usually when you use extend with an array, it just returns an array. Nothing happens. And I can demonstrate that down here. Scope.foo to an array. Well, okay, better yet, I'll just do foo. Foo equals array. Okay, and then I can write this out. And I'll only do one array in the extend, curly brackets. Okay, so there's our empty array, right? Now, when I change foo to an object, it works. Okay, so when we click this button right here, what we would expect to happen, just looking at this code, is we would expect to see an empty array, but that's not what happens. You actually get your object back. Now, what's happening here is AngularJS is initializing the view, and it's converting the foo scope variable into an object instead of an array because we say foo.bar, right? So it's converting it first. So this magically no longer becomes an array, it becomes an object. And that's why the extend works, okay? But now watch what happens when we switch over to using a debugger. All of that makes sense with console.log, but when we use a debugger, watch. Click back over to the console here. Now suddenly foo is an array again. So this is, I'm not quite sure if this is a quirk of AngularJS or if it's a quirk of Chrome's debugger. I think it's a quirk of Chrome's debugger, but I'm not entirely sure. So best I can tell, what I think is happening here is I think debugger is lying to you. I think debugger is executing in a different scope from console.log. It's interesting because at this point, if you just trust debugger, at this point you would think that scope.foo is an empty array and you would think that q did not work because in this particular scope that we're operating under, AngularJS has not overwritten scope.foo with an object from the view. You can remove this though. Let's run our debugger here. You can see as soon as we press play, it does overwrite it. So something strange is happening there. And if we remove debugger, it works just as we would expect it to work. We see an empty array beforehand, which I think that may just signify an empty object. Well, scope.foo is overwritten with q, which creates an object. So just kind of an interesting quirk. My colleague and I bashed our head against this for a long time yesterday, and I just thought it would be interesting to kind of share it. And hey, if you understand why all of this is happening, by all means, please leave me a comment down below. The purpose of this channel is not just for me to share information that I've gathered, but for me to learn new things. So if you get what's going on here, let me know. If you're curious about this particular issue and you want to play with this plunker yourself, I've included a link to the plunker down below the video in the description, so you can just click through and fork it. You can just click this, if you don't know about plunkers, you can just click this fork button and make your own copy and play with it as much as you want. Share it with your friends, share it with your colleagues, whatever you want to do. Thanks for watching and please subscribe.